So thank you for joining us today. My name is Victoria Coleman. I'm the Executive Director of the Foundation for Developing Compassion and Wisdom. Today's session is going to be 60 minutes long, and let me just share with you how it's going to unfold. So first, I'm just going to say a few words about what FDCW is and what's inspired the webinar. Then I'm going to introduce our speaker for today. We'll dive into the presentation, and at the end, there'll be plenty of time for questions and answers from you. FDCW's patron is His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and he has said that the key to a happier and more successful world is the growth of compassion. We don't need to become religious, nor do we need to believe in an ideology. All that is necessary is for each of us to develop our good human qualities. FDCW has a vision for a kinder, wiser, more compassionate world. We offer tools and resources for adults and children for a happier and more meaningful life. And we share practical ways of examining our core values, understanding our minds more deeply, and developing a sense of concern for the well-being of others. We help people to break through their self-limiting beliefs, to abandon destructive emotional patterns, to build better relationships, and to cultivate resilience. If you'd like to learn more about the work and impact of FDCW, please subscribe to our newsletter by visiting our website. And in May, we launched a new resource called Conversations That Matter. This is designed to get people talking about their core values and what is important to them. This resource is available for download from our resources page on our website for free. So please do check it out. Today's webinar is called Mindfulness Matters. So we've all heard about mindfulness, but do we really understand the liberating impact that it could have on our daily life? Mabel Odessey is an accredited facilitator of the 16 Guidelines for Life program created by FDCW. First met Mabel in France at a conference some years ago. And then a few months before this, she came to London, and we had the opportunity to meet and have a chat. She told me that she'd begun a formal course of study of mindfulness at a university in Scotland. And she told me that since she's begun this course of study, she's become converted into being a mindfulness missionary. So I find this totally intriguing. I wanted to know all about it. I wanted to know more. So she explained that it was because of the profound effect that studying and practicing mindfulness has actually had on her day-to-day life. So I felt really inspired by this, and I thought that other people would too. So I invited her to come and present this webinar today. So just a more background about Mabel. She's currently studying for this master's degree in mindfulness and compassion at the University of West Scotland. She's in her second year now. She's also certified to teach the mindfulness-based living course. This is a secular program developed by the respected Buddhist teacher Rob Nairn and the Mindfulness Association. This course is accessible and valuable for beginners as well as seasoned meditators who've experienced how the course can inform and deepen their own practices and support us in our quest to live together in harmony with ourselves and also with other people. So Mabel is going to be leading this 9-week course, which begins next week, and there's still spaces on that course if you're interested in signing up. So that's enough from me. Now I'd like to hand over to Mabel to share her thoughts on mindfulness. Thank you, Mabel.
Okay, welcome everyone. It's really lovely to see the faces I know and to see faces I don't know. Thank you so much for inviting me, Victoria, and all the FDCW team making this these events possible. To start, I'll just sort of tell you a little bit about me, just to sort of give a little bit of context to this. As Victoria mentioned, I'm a 16 Guidelines facilitator since 2015, and I thought I knew what mindfulness was, because if you've done the 16 Guidelines program, you know that we do quite a few short sessions of mindfulness as part of it, because it is such a critical skill to develop. And but when I started this master's program, I thought I had a pretty good idea, between going to Buddhist teachings and all the training for the 16 Guidelines, what we were talking about. And what I realized was I didn't really understand at all what it was. And I especially didn't realize what a deep impact it could have on all the things that really matter: how we think, how we act, how we relate to others, and how we find meaning in our lives. And so the past, I'm the second year now of the master's program, and in the past year and a half, I've really delved deeply into a number of different practices that we've learned, and also in learning to teach the practices, really developing incredible respect for it all. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you a little bit about what I'm going to talk about. Okay, can everyone see that all right? Yeah. Okay, so that was my brief introduction of me, and I'll talk a little bit about the background and context of mindfulness, and then we'll explore together what it actually is. What does that actually mean? Why practice it? What are some of the benefits? And then we'll do a short practice together that we teach on the MBLC course. And then there'll be time for some questions and feedback. And if you want to know anything more about the course, I'll be more than happy to talk about it then. So the mindfulness has its roots in Buddhist teachings from 2,500 years ago. And the word mindfulness comes from the Pali term sati, which literally means remembering. And what are we remembering? We're remembering to be present. And we all possess this capacity, like we all possess muscles, but if you don't go and train them, they don't really develop. And mindfulness in the same way is like a muscle that needs training. And although our experience is always changing, the awareness behind it is always there, and it's always possible to access. And that's one of the richnesses that we can access with mindfulness. And then we so from the Buddhist teachings, we sort of fast forward to the 70s to a man called John Kabat-Zinn, an American, who was really fundamental in bringing these teachings to the West, and bringing them to the West in a secular way. I think, there were already plenty of spiritual teachers from the East who brought the Buddhist teachings, but what John Kabat-Zinn did was he made them really accessible in a secular way, and he developed a program called MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, that was sort of piloted in a hospital setting, and was found to be very, very successful. And the incredible intelligence of John Kabat-Zinn was that he brought together not only this sense of mindfulness being remembering, but he brought together that what it implies, which is basically all the teachings of the Buddhist path, the teachings of interdependence, the teachings of impermanence, and the teachings of ethics. And compassion, they all are part of this. And from MBSR, which has been studied by scientists and psychologists, numerous academic studies since 1979, it's been very successful at not only reducing stress, but we'll see later on a number of other kind of benefits. And from that, other programs have been developed, like mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, which was developed specifically to help people who were suffering from depression not to relapse, mindfulness-based eating programs, the mindfulness-based living course, and acceptance and commitment therapy are all sort of derived from the MBSR teachings. So what I wanted to, before we sort of dive into what is mindfulness, I thought I'd let everyone here sort of have a think, not a think, but sort of reflect on it. So I invite everyone to sort of find a comfortable position if you're not in one already. And take a moment to settle by taking a few deep, 3 deep breaths, and just becoming aware of the body sensations as you breathe in and you breathe out. And just sensing the air as it comes into your body, maybe the movement of the stomach or the abdomen as it rises and falls. And becoming aware of how the body releases as it releases the breath on the out breath. And then letting your breathing just return to a natural rhythm. And leaving the attention lightly placed on the breath. Maybe getting in touch with, first of all, your intention and motivation for being here tonight. An intention maybe to just rest open and curious to discovering something about mindfulness, about yourself. And then touching in on your motivation, why you're here tonight. How might this hour be really beneficial for yourself and others? And now I'm just going to drop a question in, and without thinking it over too much, just like a pebble drops in a calm lake, just seeing how it ripples out and what comes up for you. And so the question is, what do you think mindfulness is? What does mindfulness mean to you? And when you're ready, if you've got your eyes closed, you can open your eyes and we'll come back together, and you can either tap it into the chat, or if you rather just unmute and share what's come up for you with the question, what does mindfulness mean to you? And we'll just, in the traditional universal education style, share the fantastic wisdom that's in the group already. Okay, so. Okay, great. Thank you, Cassia. Practice with intention of integrating body, mind, and spirit. Great, thank you. Wendy, thank you. Remembering the instructions, be they to walk mindfully or to breathe spaciously. Thank you. Kat, being aware of your actions, thoughts, and speech. Thank you. Jana, concentration, remembering ethics and kindness. Elena, thank you. Mindfulness for me is being present in what is now. That's perfect English. Thank you. Understanding interdependence. Yes, I agree pretty much. Roz says focus with senses and self-awareness. Nana says brand, but don't nudge me. It's a one thought and I'm not an English native. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, beautiful. Thank you, everyone. I think, what's really interesting is that there's a lot of overlap in what people have said, and there's a lot of differences, which really, I think, go to show how the word is very broad, and we've all sort of come to our own definitions of it. So I'm going to share the screen again. And move on to the definition that we use on the mindfulness-based living course, which I have adopted, which is mindfulness is knowing what's happening while it's happening without preference. And I think what's in really, it's a definition that seems very simple, but encompasses many, many deep and important things. And it's composed of two parts. There's the technique part and the attitude. And the technique is knowing what's happening while it's happening, which is what we use to help settle the monkey mind, which is, becoming aware of the fact that the mind is almost always in movement. And we use that we use the breath, because the breath is always in the present moment, as is the body. And so we use that by grounding in the body to help notice when our mind has become distracted. And we come back again and again to the present moment. And that coming back, that's mindfulness. Mindfulness isn't a state of being totally focused, which is really one of the fundamental things I've learned on the course. It's coming into the body for this full present moment awareness, but it's not like single pointed concentration, because we're not trying to push away thoughts or emotions or distractions or whatever comes up in the present moment. We welcome them, we accept them, and they become our teachers, in fact. And that takes us to the second part, which is the attitude. And the whole time we're doing mindfulness practice, whether somebody mentioned whether it be walking or sitting or move in any kind of movement, we're cultivating an attitude of nothing is wrong, there's nothing to fix, what's ever happening is okay, and we're cultivating warmth and kindness to that, and acceptance. And John Kabat-Zinn uses the expression non-judgment. And these things, this acceptance is really the seed of compassion. And it's both parts are equally important, because if we have just technique without attitude, we could be really giving ourselves a hard time every time we got distracted. But if we don't have attitude, if we don't have the technique, we can become so lost in stories and thoughts that, you know, we don't really train this muscle of mindfulness and use it to gain insight. So both those things are really essential. And by being present with things, we also begin to realize that, you know, difficult feelings are part of human experience. We through mindfulness, what can we learn by being with them, looking at them, and not trying to suppress them or avoid them? So this is a funny quote from James Joyce. Mr. Duffy lived some distance from his body. I could certainly relate to that the first time I read it, because we do, so many of us, so much of the time live in our heads, and we forget about our bodies and being present. And this relates to a lot of interesting neuroscience that people have worked on in relation to mindfulness. And we have these two modes. We have the being mode and the doing mode. And as Westerners, we're mostly in the doing mode. And the doing mode is there are two approaches. One approach is the evolutionary psychology approach, which looks at how the doing mode has evolved as our default mode to survive as a species. We needed to be doing things to survive all the time because there was danger. We needed to be able to do two things, you know, to be, hunting and aware of, you know, what's behind us and all around us. And we also had to be aware of, you know, remembering how to get back home. We need to be able to walk without having all our attention on walking. So there are really good reasons why we have these skills, and we can use them to our advantages. But what it also means, being the doing mode, is we're activating. There are three modes in the psychologies. There's the drive system, which is all about, you know, going out and achieving, which we obviously need. There's the threat system, which is all about protecting us from danger, which we need. And then there's the caring and affiliation system, which we really need. And certainly, I think if we look at our lives, we realize we spend most of the time either in the drive or the threat system, and we maybe are ignoring the caring and the affiliation system. Because in this modern life, we're addicted to doing. It's very difficult to not do anything. I don't know if anyone's ever tried, but when we finish the webinar, maybe sit down for a couple of minutes and see how easy it is not to do anything. It's really hard. So what we're doing in mindfulness is we're trying to cultivate this being mode. And being mode is being present for what's happening, because lots of things are happening all the time. And to do that, we're training our attention. We're training our attention to when we notice that we're in the future or in the past, hopes, regrets, fears, we bring ourselves back to being here in the present. And research has shown that about 50% of our lives we spend mind wandering. And mind wandering is usually, it means that we're not here, we're somewhere else. We're in the past, we're in the future, we're ruminating. It's generally not a very productive or beneficial state to be in, but it's our default mode. And it's not like anybody should be blamed for it or anything like that. It's just how our brains have evolved. And compassion training has been found to reduce this in scientific studies. So what is mindfulness? So, and a lot of these words have come up in the chat already, which I find is always really wonderful about when we share the wisdom in a group like this. We get, such wonderful wisdom is already present. So mindfulness is being intentional. It's experiential. There are thousands and thousands of books about mindfulness. I could talk about it, all night long, but it wouldn't be mindfulness, because mindfulness is something you have to experiment, you have to do for yourself. It's non-judgmental. That means that whatever comes up, we train to be okay with, to allow. And I'm talking specifically about our inner environment. Obviously, it's not being, totally passive about injustice out in the world, but this is an attitude. Firstly, we're cultivating towards our inner environment, one of acceptance and kindness. And this attitude is important because it opens us up to discovering things. It opens us up to finding out more about ourselves. In that way, mindfulness is really the first step to gaining insight about our habitual patterns, to gaining insight about, how we function, to gaining insight into, who we really are. And we can learn a lot from where the mind wanders and how the mind wanders. And mindfulness is something we all already possess. It's not like we have to go out and get this or work really hard for it to happen. We already have this capacity. We just need to sit down and be with ourselves and develop it. And what it is not, and I think this is also important because there are so many misconceptions, obviously not in this group, but out there, that mindfulness, it's not a way of relaxing. It may feel relaxing, but that's not what it is. It's not in this way to escape from emotional or physical pain. It's not emptying the mind of thoughts, and it's not complicated, but it's not easy. And that's why it's called mindfulness practice, because we're just practicing. We're not, I don't know if you get anywhere. If you get anywhere, eventually, you don't get to the end of the path where you get the medal of mindfulness. It's just we practice and we practice and we practice. So it's not a quick fix. Jon Kabat-Zinn likes to say mindfulness is like if you're going up and if you're going to jump out of an airplane, you need to sew your parachute together before you go up in the airplane, because when you have to jump out, you don't have time. So mindfulness is something that we develop when we're feeling, okay, and then when times can get difficult or stressful, we have a tool that will really help us. So there's a quote from Jon Kabat-Zinn. The astonishing thing, so counterintuitive, is that nothing needs to happen. We can give up trying to make something special occur. In letting go of wanting something special to occur, maybe we can realize that something is already occurring, and it is always occurring, namely your life unfolding in each moment of awareness. So, what are some of the benefits of doing mindfulness? So these are benefits that are, shown by research studies, that it will help you cope better with physical and mental problems. It can help reduce stress, anxiety, and rumination. It can help reduce emotional distress. There's many studies showing how it influences the brain and the immune system in positive ways. That it promotes healthy eating and sleeping and healthy relationships. So those are just a few of the benefits, which are pretty, mind-blowing. And then I thought I'd pose you a few more questions about, why mindfulness practice might be, suitable for you. So how often do you do one thing while thinking about something else? Like washing the dishes while ruminating over an argument you had with a colleague. How often do you find yourself dwelling on the past or worrying about the future? How does it make you feel to live your life this way? Do you notice any feelings of conflict or stress or a drop in your mood? Would you like to find a different way of relating to your thoughts and emotions? One that is more accepting and less reactive? So what I'd like to share with you now is a short practice. I mean, we'll do it for a little bit more than 3 minutes, but it's called the 3-minute breathing space. It's one of the sort of daily life practices that we teach in the mindfulness-based living course. And it's developed from the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy program that was developed by John Teasdale in Oxford for people with recurring depression. And it works, I say 3 minutes, we're going to do it in a longer time, but there's basically 3 phases. So, and it kind of looks like an hourglass, the way we deal with our attention. So in the first phase, before we start, we set our intention, as we do for any practice, and our motivation. And in the first phase, we have quite a wide focus, and we're just asking ourselves, what am I thinking? How do I feel? And we listen, we really try and listen to ourselves. How am I experiencing the bodily sensations? What's going on for me now, in this moment? And after that, we move to the second phase. In the second phase, we sort of focus our attention more narrowly, and we connect with the breath and the body. So we connect with the sensations of the breath and the body. And then in the third phase, we widen out again, and we open our attention out to include all of the experience going on in that moment. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, even the sounds and smells going on around you, the temperature of the room. And then we sit with that, and then we make the wish that we can bring this mindfulness, this cultivation of kind, present attention into the rest of our day. So let's have a go together. And specifically today, we're really going to look at this practice in relation to when I talked about mindfulness having two aspects, the technique and the attitude. We're really going to do this practice by trying cultivating this attitude of compassion, kindness, and acceptance. Okay? And in that way, it's a very healing practice because we're going to, rather than, if you have a cut on your hand, for example, if you wanted to heal, you don't keep picking at the scab and scratching it, do you? You put a little plaster on it, you leave it alone. And our mind is the same. We're always messing about with it. We're always interfering and doing something with it. So mindfulness is a way of healing because we just let it be as it is. So it can be very healing. And there's a really nice, we'll do the practice in a minute. I just want to say one more thing. A really nice way of thinking about it that they use, that I've heard. And we're talking about the mindfulness practice. If we imagine, if we've seen older people sitting watching children in a playground, and that attitude that they're just watching. If a child falls over, they don't rush over and try and intervene. They just watch and watch the child get up. If the children are laughing, they're just enjoying that. And that's the kind of attitude of allowing and being with whatever comes up that we're trying to cultivate with this. So without further ado, let's try that. So let's take a moment or two to make sure everyone is comfortable in their seat. And let's start by forming the intention to do this short practice together, to stay alert and open and curious to whatever is arising in this present moment. And the first step of the practice, just drop in the question, what am I thinking right now? And just listening to our own inner dialogue. Maybe it's gone really quiet when we shone the spotlight of attention on it, or maybe it's really noisy. Just noticing. Noticing what the internal weather is like. How you feel. You may not need to give it a name. Just honestly and kindly noticing how you feel. No need to be in to improve, nothing to improve. Just accepting things as they are. Turning the attention to the sensations in the body. Maybe starting with the obvious sensations of the points of contact with the chair or the floor. Not thinking about it, just letting yourself experience whatever sensations are there. And then we'll bring our attention to the breath. Where can you notice the breath in the body? Do you notice how just the question brings our awareness and our attention to these sensations of the breath? Is it possible to stay with the breath through one whole cycle of coming and going? Noticing the natural movement in the body with the breath, not trying to change it. How much attention do you need to have on the breath so the mind is free? Thoughts are free to come and go. And the breath is a reference point. To know if you're present. Keeping a light touch on the breath and letting the thoughts and feelings come and go. Accepting that tendency of thoughts arising and the mind moving away from the breath and getting engaged in stories. Then we find our way home from being lost in a story, accepting that and bringing awareness back to the sensations of the breath in the body. And now opening up our awareness of the breath to begin to allow everything to come into the experience. Any sounds or smells around you, the temperature of the air around your body, thoughts, feelings, sensations. What if everything became part of the meditation? What if we could accept that everything is allowed to be there? If confusion is there, allow it to arise and let go. If judgment is there, can we accept that that happens from time to time? Feeling safe in our bodies, with the gentle rhythm of the coming and going of the breath. Just allowing everything to be there, just as it is. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. As we bring this practice to a close, we can give up any sense of trying to practice. And just sit together in silence, maybe for a moment before we start the next phase. And we can bring together, bring forward with us, take with us for the next moments of the day or evening, this acceptance and kindness and openness. And when you're ready, you can come together again, and I'm happy to hear if you have any questions or anything that you've noticed that you'd like to share. We have 10 minutes left for that.
I actually had a question, Mabel. Can I jump in? So
great, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you talked a bit about compassion and having compassion in this practice. What role do you think love plays in this? In other words, so this morning I was trying to do a meditation. I thought, right, I'm going to try and meditate on love and sort of forgiving myself and letting go of judgment. And it was really hard. I didn't even know where to start. I was kind of like blocked. And I thought, I can't be the only person that experiences that. And I think, do you have any advice on how you start that process of just letting go and sending yourself love and being compassionate with yourself? What's your experience of that?
Yeah, I can really relate to what you're saying, Victoria, because I think it is really, I found it really difficult. And I found it really having a very strong inner critic with a very, very loud voice, and a very, very tiny little inner cheerleader with a soft, kind voice. So I think it can be, it's a challenge. And I think with from what I understand, we start by working with our minds and creating this kind of acceptance and openness to our experience moment by moment, and which accepts that we're flawed. We're all flawed. Rob Nairn says neurotic messes, and that's okay. That, we live in samsara. We are human beings. You would never tell your best friend, come on, what's wrong with you? You're not perfect. Would you? No, we wouldn't. We'd never do that. But we tell this to ourselves, or I tell this to myself all the time. And I think we have to start very gently, and by starting to accept ourselves and starting to accept that we all need love. And Chris Germer, who was one of the founders of the mindful self-compassion movement, talks about starting to offer himself loving kindness. And he talks about how it's, you have to start by opening up to the fact that, you would do this for someone else. And just like my friend is suffering and wants to be loved, my dear friend, I too am suffering and want to be loved. And slowly, we do the practice, and the loving kindness practice is also part of the MBLC course. And we should say, you're not expecting any results. We're doing the practice. We're starting to train our mind to work differently with ourselves. But we're not expecting results. And I think that's a really important point with all of this. We come to mindfulness because we're sick of suffering in some way or another, and we're hoping that it's all going to change. And that's really important because that gets us to the cushion or the chair or wherever it is. But when we sit down to actually do a session, we have to let go of any expectations and striving, because those will become obstacles. And I think probably for loving kindness, it's kind of the same. I don't know, does that answer your question? Is that
Yes, it does. And you said that mindfulness is like a muscle and it can be trained. So how long before you start to see changes in your life, or how long before you start to see a benefit, like you're getting some sort of handle on the crazy mind? Is it like weeks, months, and how often do you have to do it every day? Is it like 10 minutes, 20, half an hour?
Yes. How long? Well, let's start with the easy part. Regularity is really the most important thing. And it's more important to practice 5 minutes every day than half an hour once a week, or an hour once a week, or something like that. The regularity is really what, helps, build this muscle. And I think the changes that I've noticed is not so much like my mind is really sort of clear and settled more, but the way I relate to it. And I think for that's sort of the thing that makes it so revolutionary in how you live your life, because you change how you relate to things that aren't always going your own way. I kind of look back and I sort of think, I'm going to be 62. No, I am 62. And I kind of feel like if I spent most of my life relating to everything like a spoiled 6-year-old, I either get what I like and I'm happy, or I don't get what I like and I'm cross about it. And mindfulness, it taught me to you can recognize that and laugh at it. And it's not like it all goes away. It goes away maybe a little bit, but it's this ability to sort of recognize it and laugh at it and not have to act on it, not believing, not identifying with one's thoughts. I think that's really where we gain an insight, and it really makes a difference to our life. You start to realize the impermanence and the total non-solidity of a thought or an opinion. And so we don't need to, grasp onto it and be right all the time. That's my experience.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions for Mabel they'd like to ask? Maybe use the icon to raise your hand, or just physically raise your hand if you like. Otherwise, Mabel, could you just say a few? Oh, Wendy has one. Wendy?
Thank you, Mabel. I've really enjoyed very much your presentation. I wondered if there were any pitfalls of mindfulness, any downside to mindfulness.
I think that what we have to be careful about is it may not be always the right time and the right practice for everyone. So there's a whole big movement now about trauma-informed mindfulness, because sometimes for people who have experienced trauma, the body is not a safe place. So, for some people, they found, trying to sit still really unpleasant and triggering all sorts of unpleasant emotions. So the good news is that there are a lot of different practices that you can offer people to come into touch, to get in touch with being present, but not being triggered into really, unpleasant and disturbing places. But I think, you need to be quite a skilled facilitator with people like that, and you have to really alert people that it may not be the right time. I mean, for all the practices we do, it's always what we say to people is, if at any point, don't listen to what I'm saying, do what you need to do. Your first priority is looking after yourself, and that may mean not to practice. Thanks, Wendy.
Maybe we can wrap up now. I'd like to wrap up by thanking Mabel for a really beautiful presentation and absolutely lovely, lovely meditation practice. Thank you for sharing so clearly and so inspiring. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I hope everyone did too. Mabel's leading a 9-week course called Mindfulness-Based Living, and it begins on Thursday, the 15th of September from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time each week. So it's a weekly course. I think Angela shared the link. So if you're interested in registering for that, please visit our website to find out more details. Mabel does warn your life's not going to change overnight by doing this course. You're not just going to experience bliss and serenity, but with practice, you're going to learn to deal with your crazy mind and work with it. So in the way that she's described. So thank you again, Mabel, for these many insights and practical tips you shared and inspiration. I'm just going to close out the session with a few words from our patron, who I find very inspiring, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He says, compassion means wanting to do something to relieve the hardships of others, and this desire to help, far from dragging us further into suffering ourselves, actually gives us energy and a sense of purpose and direction. Since universal compassion involves gradually expanding one's circle of concern until it finally embraces the whole of humanity, it needs constant cultivation. Compassion doesn't make you weak or passive. In fact, it requires great fortitude and strength of character. So with that, I'd like to thank you all and send you all a big hug. And thank you again to Mabel.